Good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. We're broadcasting live from Lagos, our commercial nerve center and our global headquarters. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga. Welcome.
Yes, we're back and better. Rain or shine, we will swim or burn, but we won't scorch. Good morning and welcome to your perfect day starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
So as always, for this period, our eyes are always on the United States and how things are going there. You know, depending on what you're looking at, you know, the numbers are trickling in, but it's still very far away for us to make a decision. But it's a race to 270, which is what each candidate needs to be able to be named the next president of the United States. It's a race against Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States. So right now, we're just watching what is going on. I think we understand that Donald Trump is leading in two battles, has won two battleground states, but it's too early to call. So we're just going to be around it until we have clarity as to what is going on. So that is on the international scene. Bukola, what's going on here? I just got back.
When you said it's too early for us to decide, I was wondering, what has Jeffrey got to do with the entire process? What is Jeffrey deciding?
No, it's too early for us. So what I wanted to say, I guess, was to get to know what is going on.
I understand.
But for the funny reason, this is one election that I'm a bit neither here nor there. You know, the enthusiasm, the fire, because the two candidates, if I had my way, let me just reserve my thoughts. So I'm just like, well, America, you have your choice. It's up to you to make a decision. The rest of us around the world will have to live with whatever you decide, whether you want to bring in Donald Trump, who is, you know, intense, sometimes going off guard, you know, off rail. And then it could also bring a Kamala Harris that we haven't seen her hold this office before. You know, she's on the very left side. You know, some people say anything goes. You know, there are different descriptions to both candidates, but I'm just there watching as a journalist. Our job is to report what happens at the end of the day.
Yes, indeed, Jeffrey, there's a discernible difference between the elections of 2024 and the elections of 2020. If you recall that time, 2024, when Donald Trump went against Biden. So I recall that time Nigerians were very invested, and there was
he went against Biden in 2020.
2020, that's what I said.
Okay.
Yeah, 2024 and 2020, that's what I said.
Okay.
So Nigerians were very invested, and there was a huge divide, you know, between those who were for Trump and those who were for Biden, between the Republican Nigerians and the Democrat Nigerians. And perhaps, you know, COVID also played a very huge factor at that time, because perhaps many had more time to invest in the debate. There's a departure, you know, between that time and now. What is responsible? Maybe because Nigerians now have more to deal with.
I like that part.
Back home,
we have a lot to deal with
now. But back home, of course, we see that the Federal High Court has dropped charges against the 119, the minors rather, and the Defense Counsel. Yes, Mr. Femi Falana has called for the charges to be dropped against all the other protesters as well. And we're looking into that space. So we're going to leave our gunpowder dry. We're not going to begin exploring that now. Of course, we'll do that much later on. And we also see that President Bola Tinubu has elevated the acting chief of army staff to the rank of Lieutenant General. And perhaps many have begun to talk about that, but maybe it has, you know, brought to a close that conversation on the possibility of the return of the substantive Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja. And, you know, we could all recall prior to this time how the Army had denied reports of his ill health, even denied that there is no office for acting Chief of Army Staff. What will happen in the coming days, we really cannot tell, but he's been elevated. And there's also talk about what will also happen to, you know, those below that rank now that he has been elevated, because of what customarily happens in the Army when these promotions are made. But we must remember the substantive Chief of Army Staff at this time and wish him quick recovery. He is in our prayers, and we acknowledge his excellent service to the nation, and we hope that he returns very, very soon to continue his work. Jeffrey.
At the end of the day, the signals are out there, but we'll get to know officially what is going on. But it just speaks to the fact that when you wake up in the morning, you should be grateful to God. Our prayers and our thoughts are with the family of Lieutenant General Henry Lagbaja, who we understand is having health challenges, is taking medical treatment or is being treated abroad. Because this is a man that was doing his bit for the nation as much as he could, but now health has decided to take a toll on him, and he just has to rest and see how things play out from here. So when you wake up every morning, just whichever deity you subscribe to, be grateful for life and all of that. So our prayers and our thoughts are with the family, and hope you can make quick recovery. But hey, let's bring you up to speed with what we'll be doing today. As much as we watch what's going on in the Americas, there's a lot to talk about here. In fact, there's too much to talk about right here. So let's tell you what we're doing today. We deep dive into an outlook on Nigerians in diaspora. We'll be roving through their challenges, concerns, commitments, and commendations. What can be done to restore citizens' dignity despite their choice of residence abroad? The chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Abike Dabrerewa, will be our guest on the program right here.
Well, the state of the nation is also in our line of vision this morning. First of all, the judiciary being the last hope of the common man, so they say. But is it really the case? From the issues of access to justice by all, conflicting court rulings and debatable judgments, the third arm of government still battles to reposition its reputation, and it's apparently on trial. We'll also be looking at what seems to be the shrinking civic space in the country, and amongst many other issues as well. So we'll have that conversation this morning.
And then to one of our very favorite part of the program, we highlight the journey of a Port Harcourt-based fashion designer carving a niche for himself in his craft, one design at a time. We meet the creative director of Rumi's Couture, Promise Francis, right here on the program.
And don't forget that you're the third anchor on the show, so we'll welcome your thoughts, your comments, and your contributions. Go to our preferred social media platform, but of course we're also on other social media platforms, and drop your thoughts. And we have quite a list this morning about the many things happening across the country, from the dropping of charges against the hashtag #EndBadGovernance protesters. We also see the elevation of the acting chief of army staff to the rank of Lieutenant General, to Abuja, where it is no longer a lucrative profession to beg, as the minister of the FCT is going out, according to his promise, against all shanties, which have seen, what seems to be a clearing at the moment. So what are your thoughts on this? Start typing, we'll capture them. And we have quite a number of events to highlight from your talking points today. So stay with us. After this time out, Jeffrey will bring you the top stories, and then we'll review your thoughts.
So, a senior advocate will be joining us, Abike Dabrerewa will be joining us, Promise will be joining us, and you will be joining us. Stay with us. Top on the brief this morning is the decision of the Federal High Court Abuja to strike out the charges against some end-bad-governance protesters arrested, particularly from Kano. There were minors amongst them, and the Vice President Kashim Shettima welcomed them at the presidential villa alongside the governor of Kano State, Abba Yusuf. The Vice President says the protesters were pardoned by the President Bola Tinubu on compassionate grounds and urged them to take this as a second chance to become responsible citizens. The minors were subsequently moved to Kano for rehabilitation and are to be handed over to their families.
Regardless, the President has used his position as the father of the nation to give these young men another chance at becoming responsible citizens who will make a positive impact in the drive for a better Nigeria. I would like to admonish you, young men, not to allow yourself to be used in perpetrating violence and destroying public and private property. Over 300 billion naira was lost in the protests, consisting mainly private property through looting and loss of business. I will urge you, I will advise you, you are our children, to use the opportunity of the President's magnanimous gesture in ensuring that you go back home and become responsible citizens who will contribute to the growth of the society.
Well, we're not done with the presidency. President Bola Tinubu has promoted the acting chief of army staff, Major General Olufemi Oluyede, to the rank of Lieutenant General. During a short ceremony held in the president's office at the State House to decorate the officer, President Bola Tinubu commended the military for its unwavering courage, dedication, and patriotism in maintaining the nation's security. The new Lieutenant General expressed deep gratitude and acknowledged the solemnity of the occasion. He reiterated his commitment to upholding the vision of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tauri Lagbaja, and to maintain peace across the country.
This is a recognition of your commitment, dedication, and patriotism to our country. Your record in the Nigerian military speaks for itself. All I can do on behalf of this country is to thank all of you for your commitment and dedication to see to the sovereignty and stability of this country. We are facing some challenges, security, but I will see progress being made. We must recognize that. Thank all of you, the Navy, the Air Force, the intelligence, and the synergy that existed between you is what has made this country calm and stable. And we need that stability to assure the citizen that prosperity is not far away from them.
President of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu. The federal government has terminated the 740 billion naira contract awarded to Julius Berger for the rehabilitation of the Abuja-Kaduna dual carriageway over non-performance. The Minister of Works, David Umahi, had last month issued a 7-day ultimatum to the company to accept the federal government's offer of 740 billion naira for the completion of the 82-kilometer section 2 of the road. Subsequently, in a statement by the Director of Press and Public Relations of the Federal Ministry of Works, Mr. Mohammed Ahmed, the contract was terminated after the notice of termination to the company for the completion of the project lapsed on Monday this week. Yet again, the national grid has suffered another collapse. According to a transmission company of Nigeria, the company said the grid experienced what they call partial disturbance at about 1:52 p.m. on Tuesday. And this followed a series of lines and generators tripping that caused instability to the grid and led to the partial disturbance of the system. The TCN says its engineers are working to quickly restore bulk power supply to the states affected by the partial disturbance. But same with the issues around the federal federation, the federal government again has reversed the decision to benchmark the admission age for tertiary institution at 18 years. The newly appointed Minister of Education, Mr. Tunji Alausa, announced the decision during his maiden news conference in Abuja. Apart from the Education Minister, the Minister of Labor and Employment, as well as Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, also assumed office after they were sworn in.
We will work with JAM and our university to ensure that people that are matriculating into our universities will be around 16 years. So we will not be going forward with the 18 years. We will go back to what we had before, 16 years.
Now, former President Muhammadu Buhari paid a visit to Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, over the recent floods in the state, which left about 30 people dead and at least 400 others people displaced. A statement posted on X by Former President Buhari spokesperson Garba Shehu noted that the former president was in Borno to personally commiserate with the Shehu of Borno, the state government, and the people of the state following the tragic incident. The former president was welcomed by the governor of the state, Babagana Zulum, Senator Alin Dume, and other political leaders in the state. Around 1 million people in total were affected by the devastating flood in Maiduguri in September, which claimed lives and property and livestock across the state. Let's now talk business. The Executive Vice President upstream of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Orishemeyiwa Eyeshon, says Nigeria is currently facing challenges of low funding to develop its local gas project. She says Nigeria is participating in the 40th anniversary of the Abu Dhabi International Petroleum Exhibition and Conference, and that the challenges persist despite having over 200 trillion cubic feet of proven gas reserves and targeting compressed natural gas as its transition fuel. The 2024 ADIPEC conference, as it is called, is focused on the impact of artificial intelligence on the oil and gas sector, as well as decarbonization. Now, millions of Americans across the country went to the polls to cast their votes to either the Republican candidate Donald Trump, and are still doing that, and also for the Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. Trump and his wife Melania cast their votes at the polling station in Palm Beach, Florida, after which he told reporters he was confident he had a great campaign and that he will be the first to acknowledge if he loses a fair election. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris already mailed in her ballot. More than 82 million people voted before Election Day, and polls suggest the race for the White House is neck and neck. In the meantime, the FBI issued warning about fake videos circulating online that aim to cast doubt on the election. It has highlighted 2 inauthentic videos urging Americans to vote remotely due to a high terrorist threat at the polling station and alleged voter fraud at prisons in several states. In sports now, 24-time tennis Grand Slam champion Novak Djokovic has confirmed that he will not be able to defend his ATP Finals title due to an ongoing injury which has ended his season. The tennis legend and current world #5 player was one of the 4 players still battling for one of the 3 remaining places at the season-ending event in Turin, which kicks off on Sunday. But he confirmed via social media that he will not be able to make the bid for a 3rd straight final this time. Novak Djokovic, the very best for him. Well, he's done his bit in my view, as far as this is concerned. But hey, those are the ones who've been tracking. We're still tracking the Americas to find out what the polls are saying. Who wins at the end of the day, we'll get to find out when the results are announced. But Bukola now joins me to bring us up to speed with what you've been saying on X. Bukola.
You know, Jeffrey, as I said earlier, we have quite a spread today. There's a lot to talk about. The new Minister of Education resumed by announcing the scrapping of the 18-year benchmark for admission into tertiary institutions. We'll also be touching on River State, where there is a challenge of flooding currently. But Jeffrey, your prayer, or would I say prophecy, from a few days ago last week seems to have come to pass with the collapsing of the national grid one more time. I believe the 9th time already this year.
Okay, they have what they call grid and disturbance and setback. All of this name means there's no light. So it's not a prayer that I prayed for Nigeria. I only was saying what is fact. So this one has happened. It will happen again. Because the things that are supposed to be done, until we fix it, we'll just keep managing. That's just about it.
And we can't talk enough about how this leaves a question mark on the security installation around those critical national assets. And I recall that day one of our guests was asking that, you know, the security infrastructure put in place by the TCN must be looked into, reviewed, to see whether indeed the TCN is doing its job of securing the national asset. But there should also be a kind of security architecture for critical national assets provided for by the security institutions, i.e. the police or the armed forces. So all of those questions need to be asked. We call on the House of Representatives to, compel a hearing, or perhaps invite the heads of those institutions, so that we'll not be talking about this again. But that's where we're starting off, Jeffrey. Okay. And Mabel is the first user this morning. Mabel says, again? What will it take the federal government to tackle this problem once and for all? We're asking the same questions, Mabel.
Yes. So if we're going to get the next one, so we'll get to catch up with what you've been saying as well as Obukola, you get me that one as well. Yes, this one. Mr. Opar needs to explain to Nigerians exactly what is happening. We can't be facing issues in all aspects of our economy now.
I tell you, I say Nigerian parlance. George says setbacks are just part of the game. Really, the national grid's challenges remind us that resilience is key. Well, this sounds like sarcasm. Every restoration is a chance to rebuild stronger.
We will get there. Let's be optimistic. We'll get there. But I must give it to the guys who handle the social media of TCN. They give you hour by hour report of what is going on. I think I must commend you for that. Must commend you guys. So let's have the next one so we can bring you up to speed with as many things you're saying. This is how much should we contribute to buy power bank? Come on, guys.
Enough of sarcasm today.
What?
This is from
power
Beauty,
bank for National Grid?
We get you.
What? Okay.
We get you. Jerry is the next user. Jerry says, is it every 4 market days?
AK market days.
AK market days that it will collapse? Countries fighting wars have steady light. Well, we call power supply here in these parts light. So he continues by saying, what's the problem of this national grid? Gaga. Gaga will be really.
Yeah. Does it need
national prayers?
Okay. Let's see. Okay.
Abdul is the next user.
Abdul?
Yes,
Okay.
and there you have it.
Let's see what Abdul is
Jeffrey.
saying. States can now generate and transmit and distribute electricity. It's now left for the competent governors to look for investors. But we recently had a partnership with an international company to generate 100 megawatts solar. That's why we must give it to Akwa Ibom State. They've done a great job, successive leadership, you know. At the end of the day, that's why if you notice, when they report the grid, somehow Akwa Ibom has light because they have their installation and all of that. So kudos to them. All other governors should emulate that as well.
Yeah, and that would be such a welcome development. On to the next talking point now, Jeffrey.
Yes.
President Tinubu promotes acting COAS Oluyede to the rank of Lieutenant General, and Jeannie is the first user.
Yeah,
Jeannie.
We'll just take those pictures will be showing where that happened. But Bukola can read. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jeannie is very, very definitive about his view or their view this morning, and they say that about seals it. The acting in parenthesis part is coming off. I pray Lagbaja is fine, and that's our prayer.
Yeah, that's our prayer. We don't know what's going on with Tarid Lagbaja, the substantive chief, as it's called, but a new man is in charge now. That's him. Is now the acting chief of army staff. But let's read your thoughts even more. That's the president has decorated him and congratulating him, flanked by other officers. Lukman said, congratulations to him. May God Almighty use him to improve the welfare and conditions of Nigerian army personnel.
And Dr. Udo says that's a clear indication that the former COAS isn't returning to the role. Every senior officer to Oluyede will now be forced to retire as they can't take orders from a junior. It will be interesting to see if any of his seniors will sit back and absorb the humiliation.
Well, it's a culture here. The commander-in-chief has done what the commander-in-chief has to do. So at the end of the day,
that's as honest as this view can get about the reality of the situation.
All right, Cloud says, sorry, Bukola. So we currently have 2 acting lieutenant generals in the Nigerian Army. I don't think so. There's a substantive one that's not feeling well, and there's this one. So let's head to where Dr. Tunji Alausa, who was the Minister of State for Health, who's now the Minister of Education, has to say about what was done by Tahir Maman, professor, talking about the issue of admission into higher institution. 18 years was the limit. Until you get there, you can't get in. So let's find out what you are saying.
Maybe we'll take just 2 of this so that we can cover all that. Yeah.
Judge, this could be a game changer for many aspiring students. By abolishing the 18-year admission benchmark, Dr. Alausa is opening doors for those ready to learn regardless of age. Education should have no barriers.
Well, let's be clear that the new minister says it will return to what it was before, being 16 years benchmark, not 18 years anymore. So we can't leave it open. It's not necessarily any age. So we can't have a 12-year-old in a tertiary institution. Zoe Adiola says, yes, for now, they may remove the 18-year admission benchmark into tertiary institutions, but they should start working on regulating that aspect. There is a need for control in this regard. And, you know, this is as profound as it gets, because I remember we talked about this, and Kadi was calling for whatever policy should be based on data. What's the data available to show that indeed 16-year-olds can survive in a tertiary institution, or 18-year-olds can survive in a tertiary institution? But let's go to the next talking point.
I think we have a video for the next one. So we don't know what played out here, but there was a disagreement between maybe a bus driver. Okay, before we get there, let's talk about what happened in Rivers State. There's a flood that happened in Rivers State. I think in Ahoda West local government, this is almost a recurrent issue. So, okay, I understand it's Sele in Oshodi area as well.
Okay, let's go to Lagos now.
Let's go to Lagos first. So
we'll have that video.
We can have that video. Yes. Okay, now I mixed it up. So this one now, so please, viewer discretion is advised. This is what played out in Sele Oshodi, I think yesterday, between LASMA officials and a bus driver. We don't know what their disagreement was, but somehow we don't know where that fire came from. So we'd like you to watch it, but viewer discretion is advised, and then we'll take your response.
Holy shit!
So that's a video of what played out. So if you watch, you see what's going on. Boom, fire. What played out?
Where
we don't know.
the fire came from, we do not know.
We don't know where it came from. But this is where I was afraid of. When the man was running to the center of the road, and then a tanker perhaps
coming.
Those are
another danger.
That was really dangerous.
Suffice it to say that we must not lose our humanity. As much as this is candid camera.
And then the LASMA officials started racing.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they were running away from danger, because it looks like people want to attack them and all of that. I don't know. So see all those tankers there, and there was fire around here.
Yeah.
That was really dangerous.
And as much as this is candid camera, and we appreciate being able to see this happen, you know, maybe not real time, but reported. But we must not lose our humanity because of the commentary coming from the person recording the video. It was insensitive and not, you know, having any form of emotion for whatever was transpiring and the danger that, you know, those beneath must be going through. You know, so we needed to put that through as well.
All right. So let's get to a few of your comments. Sergeant Show says, if your clothes or yourself ever caught fire, running is the last thing to do. Get away from the source and roll on the ground as fast as you could. Running would only supply the fire, air to the fire, maybe oxygen to the fire, and we all know what that could do. Because you have the next
True. And Ray says, frustration day, everybody already. That's everyone is going through frustration already. Make these road traffic officers take things easy. More of these will occur in these harsh times. I go by feel 1K plus. One road safety or LASMA officer go one extort me join. Jeffrey, you are the Pidgin English expert, so break it down.
I'm not. So, but just before we wrap up and get to our very first conversation, our guest is already seated and waiting for us. The issue of Ahoda West, right? Ahoda West local government area. We'll just see that video of the flooding that was reported. People can get that. But let me read your thoughts of somebody. C Vibe says, okay, that's the video. That's the video. Farmland, homes, road submerged. So
103 communities, I believe, is reportedly affected by this flooding that is as a result of the release of water, overflow rather, of the Orashi River. And you know, a federal government committee is currently embarking on an assessment tour of the dams in the country, and so we hope that the reports will come through as honest as they can get. We've been told that the Goronyo Dam is okay, but if there is an overflow from the Orashi River and it is leading to this with all of the attendant consequences on agriculture and businesses, the federal government must do something about these as quickly as possible, so that sustainability of lives and property can be ensured in these communities.
See vibes. Let's hope for a quick assistance and recovery. Those affected. Nature can be relentless. I think producers say we have one more. Something that happened at what's it called, Pinnock Estate, where residents they did not properly lock up their dog, and the dog actually attacked the security man. So
actually mauled the security man to death.
Yes, mauled him to death, literally. So you can see the dogs around. That we had to blur the pictures so that you don't see the level of the extent to which this happened. For those who may be sensitive to visuals like this. So the man is laying on the floor where his blood is dead. The dogs literally killed him, mauled him to death. 3 of those dogs. I'm not a big fan of dogs, but respect to those who have dogs. These are the reasons why I don't have dogs in my house. But hey, but I understand that the person has been arrested. The individual has been arrested and all of that. So Simply Unique says, this is sad. Man is hunting for his daily bread. Now dog has hunted him as a daily bread. The owner of the dog, I guess, will be devastated, but in the end, the deed has been done. May God comfort his family. So those are some of your thoughts as far as this is concerned. So we try to track as many things as possible you're talking about on social media, on the streets of Lagos and across Nigeria as a whole. But hey, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to our very first conversation for the day. Senior Advocate of Nigeria will be joining us to talk about the state of the nation, the shrinking civic space, and the judiciary in focus. S.A.N. Adegboruwa joins us in just a moment.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So we set the ball rolling immediately. The heartbeat of the nation is in our line of vision as we examine a myriad of issues: executive, judiciary relationship, civil liberties, the independence of the judiciary, which is a continuing debate that never seems to go out of fashion as a result of obvious current realities. And so joining us to have this all-important conversation is Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Ebun Olu Adeborua. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have
Nigerians.
you. Thank you so much, sir. So I'm going to start off straight with the dropping of the charges against the minors, even though that has seemed to resolve the issue. But there's still so many things to talk about in that space to understand. We have been told that the discontinuing of the trial and the taking over and discontinuing of that case by the Attorney General of the Federation is in line with the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, and it's fine. But the Defense Counsel is also asking that the charges be dropped against all the others. But the speed with which institutions responded to the order of Mr. President that those minors be released unconditionally, what can we glean about it if we viewed it independently, particularly about judicial independence?
Thank you very much. I think the case of the minors is a reflection of what is going on in the country generally. When you remember Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, a central not holding, because look at the charges, treasonable felony, mutiny, charging minors with offense of trying to overthrow the government. You take that to be the height of criminal prosecution, because if they were to be convicted, they will take the maximum penalty. And so you would think that if somebody is planning to overthrow the government and the person is to be tried, it will come from the highest quarters, that is the office of the Attorney General of the Federation. I do not think that such prosecution could take place without the knowledge of the Attorney General, being the chief law officer of the Federation. So you see that prosecutorial malady where the Inspector General of Police is exercising discretion to charge minors for treasonable felony, for mutiny, for trying to overthrow a government without the #1 chief law officer of the Federation in the know of that kind of prosecution. And then what is the proof of evidence? They were said to be holding water pipes, cables, Russian flag allegedly, and then a letter from the Chief of Army Staff for investigation. You remember popular cases of treasonable felony, Chief M. Abiola, Chief Awolowo. So it comes to the height of criminal prosecution when you say somebody is trying to overthrow government. So that to me just shows that something is amiss. Somebody is not in charge. And it cascades down to every other aspect of this government. As you will see in many cases, a minister is being screened on the floor of the Senate, and suddenly you are told that the nomination has been withdrawn. Why she's still there to be screened? A lot of decisions taken when there is backlash and there's outrage, immediately it's reversed. It's something common with this administration, and just shows that, there's confusion. There seems to be some falling apart, at the center. And it's because largely, from my own observation, there seems to be some confusion. Like General Olusegun Obasanjo said recently that for you to seek to lead people, you should be prepared. There should be a blueprint, of what you want to do when you get to office. So it's not just a matter of entitlement mentality. You should have your team in place. You should have your program in place. As the American election is coasting to victory today, you would, in the next 2 days, people will announce their blueprint and agenda of how to take their country out of the woods. So I think that case of the minor is just totally unfortunate. And it's a reflection of the general confusion in this government.
I seek to understand that if President Bola Tinubu had not intervened by asking that the minors be released unconditionally, would the judiciary had responded and the Attorney General had responded with such swiftness, by discontinuing the trial? Even the police, we saw the police, the IG ordering that, top police officers be investigated for the way those minors were treated. So would those institutions had acted with such alacrity had President Tinubu not intervened?
I don't think Nigerians should be, I want to use the word swayed by the so-called presidential intervention. I don't think that those children were arraigned without the knowledge of the presidency. So this is just political hypocrisy, if I can tell you, honestly. You recall that in August, the entire country was virtually aflame because the president and the government did not want Nigerians to protest. And these children were arrested since August. So it cannot be that the presidency was not aware that they were in custody from Kano, from Kaduna. And so I see somebody trying to take a political advantage of a situation that he caused. So I don't want to be swayed by the so-called presidential intervention to curry favor from the people of Nigeria. The responsibility of what happened lies straight at the desk of the president. So I don't think that it's his intervention that caused their release. It's the outrage. The president was trying to avoid embarrassment. The government was trying to avoid a situation whereby they will be defeated in court because the charges could not succeed. I've told you there was no evidence. For you to charge somebody for treasonable felony or mutiny, the person must be planning to overthrow the government. There must be conspiracy, like people who are planning coup. Not children who are 13 years old, not children who are minors. And the law is clear, the Child Rights Act is clear that you couldn't charge those people with that kind of offense. So the government did what it did to save face, to save embarrassment. The charge was going to collapse. And it was going to collapse on the head of the government. So what the president did was quickly to intervene to avoid the coming embarrassment to the government. So no credit should go to the president for intervening to save face from what should not have happened. But if the charge had continued, the judiciary would have, of course, taken a decision. There was no way those children could have been convicted for those offenses with which they were charged based on the evidence available.
It was interesting to see some walking back on words. I know when the issue came up, the spokesperson of the police has said after 7 years they could go on trial. It was an argument of minors. Some even, I think the IGP trade statement as well, some of the children were, I understand, were maybe acting a script or so. And then at the end of the day, when you look at it critically, when you mention the fact that the IGP had gone on to charge them for treason without the knowledge of the AGF, it was difficult for me to process that because this was a widespread, and I am happy you mentioned the fact that the president had come. Everybody was in the know as far as this issue is concerned. But that speaks to a very larger issue as to the civic space, which is one of the things we would like you to speak to. If children who, quote and unquote, participated in this exercise are subjected to this kind of treatment, which I also want you to expatiate on, how far can we go with children when it comes to issues like this? Let's assume they were really involved in one thing or the other. If children can be treated like this, kept in from August to the end of October by a government that is supposed to protect them, what does it say about the civic space at the end of the day?
I think that generally from my observation, this current government is intolerant of opposition, is scared of criticism, and is doing its best to bear its fangs against those it considered to be enemies of the government. And so you see trumped-up charges, you see clampdown on the press, on the media, you see people being bullied from speaking or from protesting. And so the general atmosphere is that human rights of the people of Nigeria is at the background in this current regime. That's one. Secondly is this. You can't beat somebody and say you shouldn't cry. I mean, look at the situation of Nigeria. The roads, you can't travel. They are bad. The option is to fly by air. The cost is not affordable. There is no electricity. The grid has just collapsed yesterday, probably for the 10th time in this year. So there is no electricity. The option is to buy a generator. To maintain that generator, you need fuel, you need diesel. So you will be dancing between NNPCL and Dangote and the oil marketers. And then you get sick because of this. You want to go to the hospitals, there are no drugs. So you then see that when people get to that stage where a government is pushing them down, the income is less and your expenditure is more. And then the government then says, don't protest. So you see that it shows a government that has no plan, no agenda. Because if you have a plan, you will come to the table, people will debate it, people will criticize you objectively, and you defend your plan. So the space currently in Nigeria is that opposition is not tolerated. Even politically, you will see that in virtually all the states, the ruling party is trying to capture virtually all the opposition states in order to enforce one-party state on our country. Section 11 of the Child Rights Act says that no child should be subjected to torture, should be subjected to violence. Of the nature of the people we saw in that viral video is torture, mentally, deprivation. They were not well fed. And then they were denied access to their parents and their legal practitioners. It took civil society organizations, Mr. Femi Falana or SAN, it took the End Back governance team to intervene because the children didn't have lawyers. Why would you charge underage children in court with such an offense without assistance of a legal practitioner? The same government set up the Legal Aid Council, whereby once you are taking somebody to court for a serious offense, you are the one to make arrangement through the Legal Aid Council to get representation for them. Under the Child Rights Act, a person is deemed to be a minor or a child if he's under 18. It's the same government that promulgated the law.
But we'll speak to this. Police PRO Muyiwa Adejobi said anyone above 7 years can be arraigned in court. What's your legal interpretation of that? Of course, the police has a legal department in all its formations.
Oh yes, minors can be charged under special arrangements if, for instance, they commit offense along with adults. But in this case, in particular for the minors who were arrested in Kaduna and Kano, they were arrested for protesting. Not that they committed a criminal offense in the nature of rape, in the nature of murder. They were arrested for exercising their fundamental right to protest. And that's why there's national outrage. If a child commits an offense in the course of ordinary criminal liability, of course it can be arraigned in the family court, it can be arraigned in the juvenile court under special arrangement, but not in this circumstance whereby people trooped out to the street to protest against bad governance. And I'm emphasizing what led to the protest is that people are dissatisfied with this government. People are angry that a government came and has no economic policy to better the lives of the people. The exchange rate is ballooning every day. The cost of fuel and energy is skyrocketing, and people are suffering. There's hunger, there's mass poverty. And so the people then trooped out to the street to protest, and then you clamp them up, children from their various states, and transported them to Abuja. And then kept them in custody for August, for September, no access. And in October, you marched them to court for treasonable felony without evidence. So that's why I said nobody should clap for the president. Indeed, what Nigerians should demand for is a commission of inquiry so that everyone who is responsible or involved in this should be brought to justice.
Let us say, I'm curious, and I'm going to call everybody out on this one. What you've explained so far seemed to me like every lawyer should know the basics of this. There's an AGF who is a senior advocate. There is the IGP who I'm sure has senior advocate working in the police. There's a judge sitting over this case. So where did we miss it to the point where children were brought in, kept for 3 months, arraigned in court, and it took a last-minute decision of the president for everyone to realize, oh, we were going on the wrong path? What does that speak to our judiciary and the interpretation of the things we're seeing?
Well, I think that generally, before you consent to assign a date for hearing of a case, it's expected that you will read the case file. And in particular, the presiding officer will seek to look at the evidence available. But when a case is brought before a judge, there is a limit to the intervention he can give in terms of preventing the hearing. His responsibility is to offer everybody the opportunity to come before him to be heard. That's why we say the eye of the judge is closed. If you see the symbol of the judiciary of the lady with a scarf over her face, he's not supposed to know you, he's not supposed to know the other side. Give the opportunity to be heard. But I expected, on the day the charges were being read, for my lord, the presiding officer, to interrogate the prosecution who brought the charges, looking at the children, their state, and probably direct that they be taken back to be properly catered for, and then make inquiry from the office of the Attorney General as to why the police is allowed to prosecute such serious offenses. Because ordinarily, I don't expect the police to file a charge of mutiny, of treasonable felony, without consulting with the office of the Attorney General. And you see what has happened now is that the Attorney General came back to exercise his responsibility under the Constitution to withdraw the charge. So generally for me, it's an indictment on the system of administration of justice in terms of the embarrassment it's caused this nation that such offense, such matter came to this stage without people who should know being in the know of it allegedly. And having that having happened now is for us to take it as a lesson, because there are people who are still facing same charges in Borno State, in other parts of the country, who are languishing. I was even told that there are part of NSAS protesters that are still in custody up till now, which shows the intolerance of the government, as I made earlier. So it's important that when we claim to run an administration that is oiled through democracy, you should allow people the opportunity for dissent, for protest, because it's guaranteed by the Constitution. After all, that's what brought the current president to power. It was through protest, you know, in various places. I mean, challenging the status quo and insisting. I mean, while the other president was in power, the current president went to Abeokuta and declared that he's entitled to run. He protested, and the heavens didn't fall. So I am appealing to the president, I mean, to respect the Constitution, to allow citizens the space to make their expressions, to make their views known, especially when they are affected by programs that is causing poverty, that is causing hunger, that is causing economic adversity for our people.
And if we're practicing constitutional democracy, it behoves of the judiciary to also interpret what the Constitution is, and for everyone to abide by the rule of law. And some would say we should not project the judiciary to look like it's totally corrupt and irresponsible. But we must also put the issues out there such that the judiciary can adjust where need be. Speaking of which, I wonder if you have chanced upon reports about politicians being, interfering with the judicial process through the sale of judgments, building houses for the judiciary. While it is important for the judiciary to be independent, perhaps we should take a track now, and then I will land on this question.
Those that are not criminally liable under the law, those are the people, they are young ones below the age of 7. Once you are more than 7, you can be charged to court. The only thing is that you need to follow certain procedures to do that. But none of them is less than 7. I think the youngest should be 13. The fact that you're a 13-year-old doesn't mean you cannot be charged to court. So anybody, even the children and young persons act, they can still charge you to court because you are 13-year-old. You can go to court.
Of course, we're referring to this point made by the Force Public Relations Officer, but we've since moved on to that, and we're now looking at the independence of the judiciary. This concern about executive interference through the sale of judgments, through bribery of the judiciary, construction of houses for the judiciary, how can we insulate the bench from this undue influence such that the judicial process can go smooth sail without this undue influence?
Bukola, let me tell you, as I sit here, I refuse to believe that the judiciary is corrupt. And I'll tell you why. I go to those courts every day. And I present my arguments, I file my cases, I get judgments, I lose some. People who claim that the judiciary is corrupt in terms of you can buy a judgment, come up with the evidence. Because it's a challenge for us if we keep on this narrative. I cannot tell you to say that maybe in some circumstances, people may be exerting influences on judges. But I tell you, as I sit here, close to 30 years of practice in and out of those courts now, I can file a case on your behalf today and get judgment without you knowing the judge, without you paying a dime. I got one of those judgments yesterday, I got some last week, and I didn't know anybody. But that's not to say that there may not be few instances when circumstances of extraneous interference may happen in the judiciary. And those ones are being painted in a way to make it look like it's the norm, but that's not correct. And I tell you before God. So when we have those instances when anybody can justify the allegation that a judge is corrupt, we should send them to jail. And you have seen examples. That's why the National Judicial Council is there. So what I like to say about judicial independence is that it's the executive, no funding. Go to the Federal High Court. You will be shocked that a particular court, a judge cannot sit down to preside over proceedings. He has to get up every now and then because the chairs have collapsed. There's no electricity supply. There are no personnel. There are judges in Lagos who are sitting over 1,000 cases. And they are human beings. So the problem with the judiciary actually is funding. And that's what the executive is doing to starve the judiciary of funds in order to ensure that cases drag. Because when you look at the system that we have, the people committing infractions against people's rights is the executive. The police will arrest you. The executive will revoke your land. The commissioner will do one or two things. So most cases in court are against executive rascality and impunity. So it's the executive that is starving judiciary and putting them down to ensure that when they do these things and you want to cry against it, they go to court. The people who are doing the election petitions, they are the politicians, they are the executive. So we must all unite to say, fund the judiciary. And when you have done that, let the institutions set up by the judiciary for checkmating its rascally members be put to use so that when we have an occasion like that, we can all say, send them to prison.
Okay, so how should we fund the judiciary? How should the executive fund the judiciary? Because there's a years on Wike who builds infrastructure for them. People will say, oh, he's building it to curry favors. The government increases their salary. They're increasing it for favors and all of that. So what's the best way to work on this and make sure that the perception is really the fact that, look, this is what we can do for the judiciary and it has nothing to do with currying favor, without speaking for them? Because you've talked about they are starving the judiciary for whatever reasons or intent.
Well, for me, it's for the National Assembly. They are the one who prepared the appropriation. They're the one who approves. And I commend those who are there now. For the first time in many years, we witnessed an upsurge in the allocation to judiciary in the current budget. That should increase as we go along. Then secondly, when you release those funds, let it go to the account of the judiciary directly. Let no governor be the one to approve the budget of the judiciary, because that's the influence we're talking about.
Should governors be building houses for judges?
No, that's the point I'm making, that make the judiciary independent. Let them buy their own cars. Let them build their own houses. Let them pay their own staff. Let them have complete independence. The National Assembly has a National Assembly Commission that recruits staff, that pays the staff. And they're the ones who are responsible for infrastructure of their members. So the same thing should happen through the judiciary. So that when you do all this and they are well taken care of, we can then go to the issue to say, every time we see an infraction of semblance of corruption, of course, we'll then be able to deal with them. But to say that the FCT minister built houses for the judiciary is neither here nor there. And I'll tell you why. The Federal Capital Territory is like a state on its own. And if you want to take land from somebody and use it for construction of buildings, whether for ministers, whether for the executive or for the legislature, maybe the error was in inviting the Chief Justice of Nigeria to attend such ceremony and then disclosing to her embarrassment that the land was revoked from Julius Berger And people say if Julius Berger decides to go to court, who is going to preside over the case of Julius Berger since the buildings were being allocated to the judiciary? I think that was totally wrong. But for me, once those opportunities arise, it should be handed over to judiciary completely, so that it will be allocation of who gets what will not be a matter for the FCT minister.
Okay, sorry. Senior advocate, at the end of the day, what we're dealing with here is perception. The public perception, which we must try to regain as much as possible, because at the end of the day, if they don't believe that the judiciary is really independent, what can we really do? But as we begin to wind down, because I hand over to Bukola, the issue of conflicting court order. The CJN has taken over, I think, for a few weeks now, a few months now. She said she's intolerant to corruption. She's going to hit the ground running. I don't know what you have seen she's done so far, because part of the judgment and conflicting orders is setting some states that have 2 houses of assembly, 2 emirs, and there are so many tools that are coming from court, and it's just a mess. So what would you be saying to the CJN in terms of the level of urgency that needs to be corrected as quickly as possible so we can begin to regain trust for that institution?
I'll be saying to Nigerians not to unduly focus on the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and I'll tell you why. If we go through the Constitution, no special responsibility is conferred on the Chief Justice other than being the head of the Supreme Court, chairman of the National Judicial Council, and also heads of certain agencies. So the CJN in Abuja, for instance, cannot determine what happens to the High Court in Lagos. She cannot determine what happens in the Federal High Court in Abuja. Neither will she determine what happens in the High Court in Kano or in Rivers State, except to exercise a disciplinary jurisdiction through the National Judicial Council, which is purely administrative. So what you have is that the outrage is against the semi-abuse of ex parte orders, of conflicting decisions by one court in Kano, in Rivers. It is for the chief judges of those states, either in Kano, whether in Rivers or any other place, to ensure that, because you can't assign a case unless the chief judge is aware. And when those cases are already being thrown up that way, they have to find a way to ensure that, you do not allow the opportunity for ex parte orders to be abused. Because telling you, sir, there are genuine cases that warrant urgency for judges to grant ex parte. It's the abuse that we're complaining of. So I don't want us to get the impression that, we shouldn't allow judges to grant ex parte orders. Speaking to what we should tell...
Politicians have access to this ex parte a lot.
I have access to ex parte orders too, I'm telling you the truth. But speaking to what you have said, if I'm talking to the CJN, my Lord, the Honorable the Chief Justice, is to digitalize the courts. Let's reduce human influence in terms of assignment of cases. Litigants should not know who their judge will be before they file their case. Litigants should not have an idea of who is going to preside over the dispute they have taken to the court. So digitalize the process. And then, of course, make the process also to go digital in terms of filing, in terms of assignment of days, electronic recording. And then you can then ensure that once a judgment is out, it's easily uploaded to the website of that particular court. So you avoid conflict in decisions of those courts. I'll be speaking to the Chief Justice to say that they can formulate policies and get a uniform model for courts, so that when you get to anywhere, this is a high court. It has electricity, it is built in a place that has security, it has facilities. You then say that this is a high court. I'll be speaking to my Lord to unify the rules of practice. Because presently, if I leave Lagos to go and practice in Delta, I have to study the rules of their statute to understand what the nature of their practice is. Indeed. There. But by the time I get to the Court of Appeal, I then have a uniform system of judges all over the country.
Indeed.
Who are in the Court of Appeal and also in the Supreme Court.
And that call for the digitalization of the courts is echoing even from members of the bench who had served in the past as well. So much to touch on, but we must thank you very much for your time and for your contributions to the program this morning. We've been speaking with Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Ebun Olu Adeburuwa. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And from here, we switch gears to another important aspect of development. This time, we'll be looking at the welfare of Nigerians in diaspora and, of course, those socioeconomic issues that also serve as push factors for Nigerians to seek greener pastures abroad. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
No judgment, no food. I beg our brothers, no one there. Indeed, what become Jama Chineke now, you now won't. I don't go about 2 years and I want to kill you. And I come na court, nothing. I use God to beg on a man and help on our people. We not be that here. We say as all of us, we many for year, we many, some there 5 years, some where they just 10 years, then they here. I beg men and help, we need freedom.
All right, so those are Nigerians in prison in Mali calling for help. Some say they've been there for 10 years and all of that. So the conversation is going to go from the good, the bad, and the ugly. We have the woman who is in the know as far as all of these issues are concerned. The chairperson of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Abike Dabri-Irregular. She joins us from our Abuja studio. Madam, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much and good morning.
Good morning. Let's start from the heavy liftings before we get to other parts of the conversation. And I know that you had responded to this particular video, and I know I listened to you talking about, look, when you live in people's country, abide by the laws and all of that. But for the people that don't have the benefit of what they just saw, what exactly is playing out here, and how much intervention has the government come through for these ladies?
I didn't see the video.
Oh.
Maybe you can just tell me about it. I didn't see the video.
Okay, because we saw the video. Oh dear. Can you see the video now, madam?
Okay. Yeah, I can see it now. Yeah, what country is that?
Mali. The ladies in the prisons in Mali.
Okay, yeah.
More than 60.
So you can respond to it. My question was,
yes, for the Mali, for the situation in Mali, they're actually in prison for one offense or the other. But like I said, even in Mali, we brought back several Nigerians. I remember the last one we did, we got a C-130 plane, not the most comfortable plane to fly in, but we brought about 40 back. So those girls are actually in prison in Mali for one offense or the other. But I think we have about 70. But the Nigerian mission has been going to the prison to see how they can be released. But you see, they claim a crime was committed, so there are processes to get them out. They are different from those that you pick up on the streets for one reason or the other. So yes, the Nigerian embassy has been working on that. And then cases like this ones in Mali, in Libya, now are handled by the Office of the National Security Advisor, because there are serious security implications, particularly places like Mali, like Libya. But yes, the Nigerian embassy, I spoke to one or two of them, and the processes are on. But the thing is, they were locked up, they are in prison for one offense or the other, whether rightly or wrongly, but they're in prison for one offense or the other. So the Nigerian mission has been having conversations with the Malian authorities, and then once that is sorted, the Office of the National Security Advisor will find a way of getting planes to bring them back. But again, the message is still all the same. You know, we don't have to go to these countries and, you know, get into this kind of trouble. But we will as, I don't know. So like I said, I was offered by the Office of the National Security Advisor and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs itself. They're actually, you know, on this matter, but it's going to take some process.
Thank you for your time. And as Jeffrey said, we're going to start with the heavy lifting. So from Mali, I want to go to Dubai, Nigerians in the UAE. In September, about 400 of them were deported. I believe in July, a number of them were also deported. And there was also that video from a Nigerian complaining that the Nigerian embassy there is not quick to come to the aid of Nigerians in terms of defending, the rights of Nigerians against all forms of oppression. We're talking about work permits and all of that. Is there anything in bilateral agreements with countries where Nigerians are that can be invoked to defend the rights of Nigerians against harassment and unfair practices, particularly when the case is not one about irregular migration? And while you answer that, Ma, perhaps you also want to speak to the reasons why those Nigerians were deported from the UAE.
Okay, for the UAE, don't forget that UAE gave almost 6 months, 1 year of grace to say if you don't have your documents, leave our country. And we also, told Nigerians that they offered free flights and said, we don't want illegal immigrants in our country. So those who wanted to seize the opportunity actually came back on those flights. And they made it clear that they're going to be very hard. And they want to clear their country of irregular migrants. And they made that very, very clear. That was before the issue of UAE and travel and all that. And so now what they're doing is actually rounding them up. If you don't have your documents, they keep them in a place and bring them back. Now, there are two categories that have been brought back from the UAE. Again, the Office of the National Security Advisor handles that because, again, there are security implications. Those that have been in prison and allowed to come back home. And those that they've rounded up and say, look, you just have to go back to your country. So another set, I think about 3 sets have returned, and more will be returning. They'll keep them, but what we tell them is, even while they're there, treat them with dignity and speed it up. So the next batch will be coming. Another 400 will be coming back because they've been rounded up without their documents. And they're not just Nigerians, they're irregular migrants. And they made it clear for over a year, even provided free food, free transportation, and said, if you don't have your documents, we don't want you in our country. So another set will be brought back, and they'll be brought back as regularly as they are getting. But there are a few cases of, I have my documents and they brought me back. 1 or 2 cases, at least we solved 2 of such cases where we realized that, well, the guy had irregular documentation. He was caught up in the wrong place, and they listened to the plea. But you know what? If they round you up because you don't have your documents and they have to bring you back, I don't know how much, intervention Nigeria can do in that regard. But what we say is that treat them with dignity, bring them back on time, because parents call or they can't hear from their relatives, and we get to know that, well, they've been locked up because, not locked up, they've been rounded up because they are there as irregular migrants. So again, is a matter that is handled by the Office of the National Security Advisor, because again, there's security implications. Some are actually serving their jail terms there, and when they come, their biometrics are taken and all that. So we hope we're working at ensuring that everybody's brought back. But at the same time, let's work at discouraging irregular migration. It's tougher out there now. It's very, very tough. Even for regular migrants, not talk of irregular migrants.
Let's make some progress on some of the efforts of the commission, because at the end of the day, it's about ensuring Nigerians have their dignity and they are respected. So if you see an American citizen anywhere in the world, you meet an American citizen, you have to think twice before you do anything to that citizen, no matter who that citizen is. I don't think that's the case for us as Nigeria, and even for the African continent for most.
I have to cut you there. Yeah. All these comparisons, we have in Brazil prison, we have about 680 in one prison alone. I don't think you have 680 Americans in some prison. So let's stop these comparisons. I said the first thing is let's do the right things. But no matter what happens, I can tell you, I personally wrote a memo to President Buhari. We brought back 10,000 Nigerians from Libya detention
You're looking at one side of the mirror.
And they're still going.
No.
So what I'm saying is that, yes, the welfare of Nigerians is paramount. As I speak with you, I've brought back, as I speak with you yesterday, another 12. We brought them back from Ghana. So we're doing that, but at the same time, we shouldn't encourage bad behavior. I remember that I was the first to say, let's treat them with dignity. So when you come back, we ensure you're received properly, you treated at the airport, a lot of things going. But at the same time, when we make these comparisons, even in Dubai, I don't want to give you figures of the numbers in prisons, but whatever, they are Nigerians, they are our people. So we have to do everything to ensure they're protected. But we should not encourage bad behavior.
All right, you're not getting my point. You should have allowed me land first.
Names and numbers and figures.
If you can hear me.
Another country, we have 430.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, madam?
The highest.
Can you hear me, madam? You didn't allow me land on my thoughts. You were presuming maybe what I wanted to say, but you're not getting the point. Nobody is supporting bad behavior. I'm just talking about simple dignity for the citizens.
I hear you intermittently.
Yes, simple dignity for our citizens, because we have states and countries around Europe and even around that have institutional racism, and we know how black people are treated and how Nigerians are treated. So my question was, or where I was going to with the question before you cut me off, was this. What is your institution or the commission doing to be more proactive than sometimes reactive so that we can reposition our image as a country to the best of our ability? I know it's a long walk. I just want you to walk us through what you're doing proactively to make sure that, let's say in the next 10 years, the respect Nigerians have will be better than what it is today, no matter what the conditions are. That's my question.
Hear the last part of your question. Can you give me the last part, where you actually asked the question?
Okay. I was saying that what can we do? What is your commission doing to be more proactive than reactive? So that at the end of the day, let's give ourselves 10 years, Nigerian image and dignity can be way more respected, no matter the situation, without supporting crime, so that we can be better positioned in the Committee of Nations. So walk us through what you're doing proactively to reposition us from the commission level.
First is awareness, working with people like you. Awareness that, try, when you go to another person's country, just try to obey the laws of that country and not commit crime. But when you do, we're there for you. Take the case of India. Some Nigerians went on the streets, started fighting the policemen, and actually you heard the Nigerian on the streets of India said, I'm a vagabond, I suck blood, fighting Indian police. Then they take action, but you come to us and say, look, do whatever you can. So what proactiveness in that regard? Maybe you can answer that question. This just happened in India. You went on the street and said, I'm a vagabond, I suck blood. And actually the videos are there. So first thing is massive awareness. Let us respect ourselves and, carrying ourselves as who we are as Nigerians with dignity and a lot. And I'm telling you something, if one Nigerian is doing that, I'll give it 10,000 that are doing great things. So I even tell them, don't judge us by that one or two persons that are behaving badly. So that is one thing. Two is we all have to work together. Don't encourage bad behavior. Secondly, raise awareness. You see, those places you are going to, if you got away with that 10 years ago, not anymore. The world is basically very, very hostile now. So that is what we do. And then we work with other agencies in terms of evacuation. You hear more of NIDCOM, but it's not just us. So Office of the National Security Advisor has a multi-agency team, immigration, NEMA, prisons, so a multi-agency team, but all domiciled under the Office of the National Security Advisor. So when we hear, how do you know there's going to be a cry for help? When you have a cry for help, then you go ahead and ensure no matter what they did, get them back. Again, like I said, in this year alone, from January to September, over 5,000 Nigerians have been brought back up from Libya. And you say proactiveness. Are you going to stop people? Are you going to know even where they're going? So really, you also have a role to play. The media, let's work together to create this awareness. For a lot of times when they come back, they tell me, I regret I went. I didn't know is what we hear. So I think massive awareness, number one. Number two, if NIDCOM is empowered to do more, we'll do it. So we're asking for that, more empowerment to be able to do, more of these crisis situations and helping Nigerians in distress. But, but as it goes on, the thing is, you can't just, I can't tell you how many people have been locked up for drugs. Then they call me and say, come and take us out. How? For those, I'm sure you have cases of people who were able to bring out of prison for one reason or the other, where realized that did not commit that crime, and we brought them back. In Benin Republic, there are many people who did not do anything wrong, but we're working at getting them back. So there are many cases you don't even hear on television or on social media. The ones you're talking about are the ones that just know they did something wrong, just go on television, make an appeal, and then whatever the case was still there for you anyway because they are Nigerians. And we continue to do that. But to your question, massive awareness that, number one, don't be, doing most of... There's a guy in Canada now, we're working on this case. We're going to get him out. Working with Nigerians there. And then another thing is, a lot of Nigerians in these countries also work with us. When there are cases of Nigerians in distress, we all work together. You don't hear that in the media, but we do it.
Thank you. Perhaps you would have been more specific with, the deliberate actions taken by the Commission in terms of awareness about those who are doing fantastic things abroad, and what is being done also to create awareness about Nigerians who are into legitimate businesses and who do not engage in bad behavior. But granted, there is no excuse for bad behavior. But perhaps the point about Jeffrey's question is that other Nigerians have had to suffer indignities as a result of the bad conduct of others who impact on the image of the generality of Nigerians. I have suffered harassment, at a particular international airport, which I would not name, of another country. But back to the issues at home that are fueling this mass migration. Many would say that the administration of the former President Muhammadu Buhari set Nigeria back many years in terms of development, in terms of the disillusionment at home. And it's your government, the government led by the All Progressive Congress. Things have not particularly gotten better, even under this administration, with inflation reaching an all-time high. And in many sectors, Nigerians are losing professionals. These are the real issues that are fueling this mass exodus of Nigerians to other countries, where they are seeking greener pastures. And I'd like you to speak to that. Those are the realities that stare us in the face. So I'd like you to speak to that.
Okay, government has to do what it has to do. Provide infrastructure, security. Government does not provide jobs, but they make it possible for jobs to be created. That is the role of government. And government cannot shy away from that or run away from that. And government is a continuum. And I know that the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing everything he can to ensure the welfare of Nigerians. Like he himself says, it may take a while, but it has to be done. There's no debate about that. The role of government is to protect the welfare of your people, provide infrastructure. That money is meant for the people, not to be stolen, and the government must tackle issues of corruption and ensure that those given the responsibility deliver. There's no debate about that. But here is the thing, and this is where awareness comes in. Some are looking for hope in hopelessness. So what's the point of, in some cases, look, I've dealt with people that had to, spend 2 million naira to go to Libya. So why don't you put that 2 million naira on something that you can do back home? And that is where there should be more, collective approach to all these things. I met a guy who sold his trailer. He was into trailer trucks, but he was told, it's so bad here, let me just go to Europe. He came back with nothing. So I'm not, saying that government should not do what it has to do. It is the role of government: security of lives and property, infrastructure, power, good roads. You see all those things. So, but that is no reason to go and die. And you know why that happens? Because they don't know. I counsel a lot of young girls. All these things are not in the media. And it's about when they come back, it's that, look, I wish I knew. I didn't know. So those migration is more of, they promised me, but that promise is never fulfilled. So yes, government has to play its role, but also we have to play our role, which is what we try to do in Diaspora Commission. How much awareness? And then bad news travels fast. When you talk about Nigerians that are doing well, look, every time, even on my page, every day we are celebrating Nigerians in the diaspora. It doesn't trend. It's the bad news that trends. So I think there's a lot more to do in that regard, and I'm so proud of Nigerians everywhere in the world, and it's really something that, you know, we need to do a lot more on, but we also want to work with you because it's the bad news that you carry. If I tell you one Nigerian was doing great, and you see one Nigerian, so the bad news is the one that's
so where is the evidence?
It's just a natural media thing. So yes.
So where is the evidence that Nigeria under this current administration is providing infrastructure, is ensuring that the economy thrives, is providing opportunities for young people such that they can stay and build Nigeria? But do you see that evidence that there will be transformation in Nigeria within the next 1 year?
I believe there will be. Let's give President Bola Ahmed Tinubu the chance, you know, and he's going to do everything he promised to do. It may be tough, it may be rough, but he has assured every one of us that he was elected to do this job. And no matter how tough and rough it is, he says he will ensure that his paramount interest is the welfare of Nigerians everywhere in the world.
Okay, we're still waiting for the promise of the president because as far as we're concerned, we know he said this is going to be brutal, but it's getting even worse by the day, which is why Bukola is saying, look, this is the reason, which is why Bukola is, so just to reiterate what I said, I'm saying that we're waiting for those promises to come through as quickly as they should because things are worse than they've been before. The leadership of Muhammadu Buhari got us here, and this is even worse right now. The president said he has to make those twin decisions, and it's going to be brutal, and Nigerians are waiting for how it will come to pass in terms of their welfare being better. That's the hope for everybody, but the reality right now is very tough. Anybody who wants to escape is looking for a way out, which is what is fueling all of this at the end of the day, which is why I want to piggyback on that question I asked. So let's talk about some of the efforts the Commission is making to see that we're looking for investments. We are asking foreigners to come and invest in our country. But the space we have here in our country is not favorable even to local investors. So what is your commission doing? What are you selling as a commission differently to say Nigeria is ripe for business, for you to come and do business at the end of the day? Because what we get most of the time are FPIs, not FDI, even though the president has said 30 billion came in dollars, which were not exactly accurate. But what is your commission doing to ensure that you work with maybe the presidency to ensure that this FDI we seek to reposition the fortune in our country? Because that's the core of the issue. If people have jobs and their lives are better, they will not be jackpine.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'm optimistic that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will fix this country. He has said it several, it's going to be tough, it's going to be rough, but I'm optimistic and I believe that he will do it. But you see, he's not going to do it alone. We all have to play our part. I have to play my part. You play your own part. Let everybody in one role or the other play their own part so that collectively we can, you know, join hands with him to make this country work. So your question is always so long. So the second part is about investments, right? Okay. Now, we're having a diaspora investment summit as I speak. At least I can give you, I hope you can come and see people who have come in, traveled from all over the world to say, well, we want to look for areas of investment. We know we hear bad stories, but want to look for areas of investment, including foreigners. It's for Nigerians in the diaspora, but we also have foreigners. There's a gentleman there who has even taken over Nigeria. I mean, if you see him, he's American, he's coming, even bringing his family. And there are many who say they have done their DNA, they want to come to Nigeria, they want to invest in Nigeria. So our role is not to tell lies, but to provide the platform to make it happen. Where there are challenges, we work with NIPC, Ministry of Trade, to overcome those challenges. Now, we are targeting our own people in the diaspora. Nigerians in the diaspora. You are abroad, you're doing very well. What can you do here? Just 3 weeks ago, I was in Lagos to join in commissioning Caring Habitat, set up by a Nigerian abroad. He left everything in America. He was there for years to set up this first of its kind hospital in Nigeria. I can give you 10 of that. So they are coming, and they know there are challenges. I can tell you a quick story. There's a doctor who came, Louis Med. He came to Nigeria, decided to set up his hospital. The first operation, the very first operation, Professor Babigboye, so you can ask him, the lights went off. The generator packed up, brand new generator. Only God help him that had finished that surgery. What if he hadn't? But guess what? He's been here for years now and setting up even another branch. So there are challenges, no doubt about that. But we are saying that we are Nigerians. Let's see what we can do in our country. There's a lady who came from California. She has a restaurant in California. She's coming to Nigeria to see how she can, work with farmers to send the produce abroad and export. So, a cup is either half full or half empty. We want to get the best of our diaspora to work with us back home, to harness those talents and potentials that we have as Nigerians in the diaspora. And by doing that, in our little way, let's work at the challenges. In our little way, let's talk about our country, let's promote our country. And like I said, it's about a collective effort. If I do my bit, you do your bit, we all do our bit collectively, we can achieve a lot of results. So that's the essence of the summit. And day one went very well. Day 2, day 3, they are there. Come and see them. They came from all over the world to see areas of investment. And then we do pitching sessions. A gentleman pitched last year. He's got his business going. So, and a whole lot of that. So we are just doing our little bit to encourage Nigerians in the diaspora, not to pack their bags and come home, but to collaborate so that collectively we can work together.
There's so many areas to touch. Following up on those Nigerians who are returning home to invest and to be sure that indeed those investments are on ground. There's, the Nigerian girls whom your commission helped to return home from Ghana. There's Nigerians in South Africa also, the challenge of xenophobic attack. We may just have to bring you back, Ma. But I'd like you to speak to this. A number of Nigerians were returned following the Russia attack on Ukraine. The war in Sudan also saw some Nigerians return home. We'd like you to provide an update on the current state of those Nigerians. What has happened to them? Have they been reintegrated? Have they started off a fresh life here? Or have they returned to Ukraine and Sudan as we wind down now?
For Sudan, nobody has returned to Sudan because the situation in Sudan hasn't gotten any better. But we're able to work with JAMB. And a lot of them, particularly those from Sudan, have been into universities here, but some still went to some other countries. But we got them together, made it possible for them. JAM, kind of amended the rules to make it possible for those, particularly in the Sudan, to continue their studies. So that was that. For the Ukraine thing, yes, most of them were medical students. For a lot of them, they were told they had to start again. By the time the Medical and Dental Council kind of, assessed them, they realized that the standard that they came home with was not commensurate with, if you were year 4 there, they told them here that you have to go back year 2 or year 1 or something. Some of them didn't like that, and they refused to start again. Some did, and they're almost done. Some went abroad. In fact, there's a university in Canada. What's the name now? They offered scholarship to about 100 of those medical students, and they're all doing well, and we're able to, I think somewhere in Dominican Republic, but based in Canada and all that. All right. Also run by a Nigerian who offered scholarship to some of them. About 100 were able to benefit from that. Some still suffered from a lot of psychological trauma. All right. There's a particular child and the mother, but I think it's getting better now. The trauma, he just couldn't get over it. Up till about last year, he looks up in the ceiling and he just sees a lot of things happening to him. So there were cases like that. So we follow up with those who were able to keep in touch with us, and I think that's the situation about both Ukraine and Sudan.
All right, we're totally out of time. We're just totally out of time.
Everybody was brought back.
Okay. John, can you hear me, madam? We're totally out of time. Thank you for coming back. Maybe 30 seconds. Have you maybe reached out or say hello or congratulations to Kemi Badenoch, who is now the Tory leader in the Conservative Party of the UK? Because she's part of your diaspora community, I guess.
You see, it depends. If she identifies, you see, as the Nigerianness in her, We've reached out to her once or twice without any response. So we don't force people to accept to being Nigerian. So if you appreciate the Nigerianness in you and you want to work with us, we're open to everybody, but we cannot force you to appreciate the Nigerianness in you. You remember the Miss Universe Nigeria in South Africa? She until she got into a little problem with South Africa, and she identified with Nigeria, came to Nigeria, we hosted her, received her warmly. Right. Listen, as long as that blood in you, you are Nigerian. So it's left to Kemi to decide whether she appreciates the Nigerianness in her, whether she wants to work with Nigeria, but we'll be glad to, but we cannot force anybody. There are some who will tell you that, I don't like that, your country. We can't force them, but we work with thousands and millions of Nigerians who are proud to be Nigerian despite the challenges. And we believe that no matter what, we are simply the best in the world. And despite our challenges, we'll get to where we truly belong, the top of the mountain.
Mrs. Abike Dabrerewa, the chairperson of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, thank you so much for your time. We need to bring you back because there's a lot we have to talk about. We just had to walk through just highlights today because of the shortness of time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll meet Promise Francis, who is a fashion designer. He brings us up to speed as to the gains and pains of his journey as a designer. Join us again.
Welcome back to the Morning Brief on Channels Television. Time now to touch on the softer side of things, and this time we're looking into the Make in Nigeria space as we celebrate a young Nigerian that's doing amazing things as far as designs, fashion design is concerned. Let's welcome Promise Francis, a fashion designer and CEO Promise Couture. Good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief on Channels Television.
Good morning, Channel. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're glad to have you on the show. So let's start this way. Walk us through your journey as far as fashion design is concerned. Is it a calling or something that happened by compulsion? And, you know, what has happened in that space?
Okay, for me, fashion wasn't just a calling. It was just something that happened in a circumstance that Nigeria has brought to us. So growing up as a child, I love to dress, I love to look good, but it wasn't a career for me. I'm actually a communicator by career, and so this is where the fashion has brought me to. And part of it is I'm thanking God for the opportunity and the desire to serve in the fashion industry. You know, there are a lot of persons who are out there looking into getting into the space, but they have no knowledge about it. But one thing is to be grateful to God who has granted me the desire and the passion to do what I'm doing today. So there are a lot of stories. I don't think we would have a lot of time to discuss how I started my journey, but it has been wonderful. I started as a young guy that didn't want to invest into anything but do what my parents wanted me to do. But along the line, I decided to just go for what I want to do. And I figured that our fashion was going to do a lot in me. So this is where I am today, and I'm grateful to God too for the privilege to be where I am now.
Okay, interesting journey. Of course, I'm sure that there's so much more there. But before we begin to talk about your challenges, I'd like you to tell us what you have found about the preferences of Nigerians as far as fashion is concerned. Do you see Nigerians in your space embracing more of, you know, the originality of what is unique to us, or do you see that continuing preference for fashion as far as Western influence is concerned?
Yeah, currently Nigeria is so engaging when it comes to fashion. The industry has grown beyond just the Nigerian thing. We have the likes of the Lagos Fashion Week, which the likes of the Arise Fashion Week, and so much, you know. And We had some great and amazing designers who showcased their pieces, and you can see the Africanness of their designs. So Western worlds are currently loving some of the Nigerian pieces and some of the things that we bring as Nigerian designers to the industry. So it's just beyond what we think that fashion is. Fashion is broad. It has a lot to play, especially when it comes to Africa as a whole. So, but Nigeria has been good when it comes to the industry generally.
You know, the reason I asked that question is because I see a lot of formal designs in your collection, and whether we like it or not, when you go into the corporate space, there's more formality there as against, you know, what is unique to us as Nigerians. But if you went to other countries, you know, in India, for instance, their outlook as a nation is more original to India, to, you know, what is homegrown. So how far are we from that point where we begin to embrace what is ours, whether it's in the corporate space or or something reserved for the fashion week alone, where we come out with truly Nigerian?
Currently, I would say that we've gone so broad in the aspect of some of our corporate affairs. Corporate bodies have imbibed the culture of dressing in our Ankara prints, like the African Ankara prints in offices, and it's imbibed in our culture as well. You know, we currently have schools who they have the cultural activities. They just want to have the cultural attires being put in place. You know, so there are lots of stuffs going on in the fashion industry. Nigeria is diversified into different space. You know, so we have different cultures. So bringing Indian is just a particular country that has a certain way where they dress. But Nigeria, we have the Yorubas, we have the Hausas, we have the Igbos. These are different cultures. So bringing all this together in different aspects, you know, we're trying to, that's a whole lot of we trying to identify that we are collecting our culture into the Western space.
Okay, Promise. So let's talk about the issue of where you live, Port Harcourt, the River State capital. So I always ask, so when we have you guys, why you're not moving to Lagos, why you chose to stay in Port Harcourt, and how enterprising it is for you is staying in Port Harcourt to do the business.
Okay, for me, I don't think distance or location is a barrier to whatever thing you're doing in life. You know, you just have to own it. Believe that what I'm into currently can make way for me. You have to understand the business. You have to understand the market. You have to understand your audience. You know, so it is one thing to be into a business and you don't know who are your audience. You get? So I decided not to. This Lagos and Port Harcourt thing is not a competition for me. For me, it's just I understand my market. I understand the people I want to dress. I understand the people I want to style. So I don't think I have a market in Lagos. Lagos is far, far, far broad beyond what most Port Harcourt people do here, the designers. So we have a lot of calm people who want to dress calmly, you know, but when you get to Lagos, you see that you have the more rash people who want to go extra, you know, so that's just the thing. Location is not a barrier for me, but Port Harcourt is very okay.
So how enterprising it is. So are you making as much money as you want to make? I didn't ask you to tell me how much you're making, how much you sew your suit and all of that.
Okay, so Promise Couture is actually a growing brand. In the next 1 year, we actually going to be 10 years in the industry, and it has been good. I don't want to say how much I've made, but for what I do, I would say it has been good. For what I do, it's good.
So also walk us through, because I'm looking at the viability of the space. Walk us through the collaborations that is in the city. I know I've forgotten, Bukola may remind me, but there's a lady we hosted one time, also from Port Harcourt, but I've forgotten her name now. What's the level of collaboration you guys are doing in the city of Port Harcourt to really make it an industry-wide, make it more of an industry than individual effort? I guess that's what I wanted to say. Because you have even mentioned the bank weeks and the fashion weeks are organized by a network or a station or a bank and all of that. What is going on in terms of collaboration within that space in Port Harcourt?
Okay, yeah, we have a lot of collaboration going involved. We have there's a fashion show in Port Harcourt. It's called the Nook International Fashion Show. That's a collaboration with the Nook Apartment, and we had recently we had the fashion experience that just happened some weeks back, and we had a lot of them. Port Harcourt Fashion and Design Week, and we had coming up soon is L'Afrique Fashion and Design Week as well. It's these are some of the collaboration we have. So we have both designers, both more of the people in the creative industry come together and see how we can put up things together, you know, in our city, not just Port Harcourt, South as a region. So we sometime last year, we had a massive wedding collaboration shoot that involved major of the best creative we had in Port Harcourt. So that was great when we had the likes of Rewari Pikin coming into as an influencer to help push that program that happened last year. So there are a lot of collaboration that has been going on in the city of Port Harcourt and South as a region.
Amazing, and I can sense a lot of creativity in that space, you know, with all of those collaborations, and we hope that it also projects Nigeria, you know, on the global map as, you know, a country to reckon with in terms of fashion. Promise Francis, thank you so much for your time on the program. We hope to host you again, and this time to celebrate more of your achievements. And by the way, Jeffrey will look very good in one of those designs of yours.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yes.
Thank you
I agree.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. We've been chatting with Promise Francis, CEO, Promise Couture, fashion designer in Port Harcourt. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And that's how it's been on the show today. That's our offering. Of course, the week is still young. We're back again tomorrow with another bumper package of your perfect morning starter on Channels Television, The Morning Brief. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. I'm walking my device to check what's going on in America. As soon as it breaks, all of us will get to know who is the next president of the United States, whether it's in days, weeks, or months, we don't know. Thank you for watching. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Don't forget, Sunrise Daily is up at the top of the hour. Thank you. God bless.